what we're seeing now with the DA, we're seeing this thing where Cilius Brink, I don't know how to say Afrikaan terms. I'm not Afrikaan, but let's just call it Cilia. Anyway,
Silius
he
Brink,
has to
Silius
step
Brink.
down. Brink, he has to step down. And I think this is beautiful because the DA has been bragging about how when they run provinces or when they run towns and cities, it's well run. It's a lie. It's only well run for the whites. And what I mean by the
But,
whites
but I
is
actually
it's not.
hear that DA
Go
is
ahead.
planning. I hear that DA is planning to renominate Silius Brink as the mayor. They don't seem to be happy with a vote of no confidence, and they are planning to
Well, they can
bring him
try.
back.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they can
yeah,
try, but it's
because
still a political loss for them. But
yeah,
the
it's a
main thing is the
political
reason this
ouster.
guy is
Yeah.
stepping down is because DA, wherever DA is, whether it's the Western Cape, whether it's areas like Kimberley or wherever they are, they only focus on the towns and cities that are upper middle class. In other words, a lot of white people. And what we saw in Tshwane is problems with flooding, problems with poverty and crime out of control in the areas where black people live and where colored people live. So it shows you that DA mismanages things. Same thing in the Western Cape. We're going to get into it later. In the Western Cape, mass shootings. I forgot the name. What's the name of the city? We'll get to that later. Mass
Okay.
shootings. Western Cape has the highest crime in the whole and murder rate in the whole country, and one of the highest. It's the highest in Africa too, and one of the highest in the world. But people always say, "Oh, DA is good." Yeah, because DA looks good because when you go to Cape Town, where the whites and everything else, there's no crime. Everything looks okay. But it's a haven for Eastern European drug dealers, corruption, all kinds of things. Foreign banks from Belgium and Germany and France own a lot of the land in Western Cape, the farms and the vineyards and things like that. And so this catastrophe for DA, where Brink is being asked to step down, goes to show you that the DA is failing just as much as the ANC is failing in bringing a better standard of living for the poor and for the black and for the marginalized. That's all I have to say. What are your thoughts?
Basically, I think if DA failed to reinstate this Brink guy, it could reduce their influence in the government of national unity because, first of all, the guy was ousted because ANC has a majority in the Tshwane Council, basically,
Yeah.
and ANC doesn't want the guy there. So, Action SA is also being criticized by the government of national unity. So it just shows that it's a marriage of strange
It's a
bedfellows.
it's yeah, it's a disunity because they're supposed to be unity together, but they're still playing internal
There's no
politics.
unity.
But but overall, they're still controlling the country, and that's why the country is headed to a disaster. Yeah, go ahead and continue. And we saw the same thing in Johannesburg. Guamanda was forced to step down. He's Jama Al Jama party, and then they brought in somebody Morero for ANC. But Hautang and Joburg is also a big man. Joburg is also suffering high levels of crime. I think there was some murders in Hillbrook yesterday and a lot of crime. So this government of national unity is a unification of ANC and DA, which is
Yeah,
mismanagement
basically.
of the country. I don't care where you're from. South Africans are telling us we're not going to talk. We're going to talk. You have to really take a close look at EFF and MK and start to think about stop giving votes to ANC and DA. They're destroying the country.
Yeah, I quite
Tomorrow we'll
agree
talk
with
about
you.
Nigeria. For any of you who want to say that we attack countries, watch our show. Tomorrow we'll talk
Yeah,
about Nigeria. We'll also
Nigeria.
talk about tomorrow we'll also talk about how the US is funding a destruction of Lebanon and Israel. We
Yeah,
talk about all countries. And what we're
yeah,
saying is that South Africa is important. We are Pan-Africans. If it continues like this, the country is going to South Africa is a strong country. It will never dissolve, but the level of misery is going to continue rising. Okay, last thoughts on that before we go and talk about crime.
yeah. So basically, well, you've said it all.
Yeah,
Internal conflicts in the government of national unity. It's leading to a lot of problem. There's no clarity of leadership.
yeah.
Policies are being compromised. And the problem with all of this is that there's public distrust. The public will not trust the government. When you have this kind of government, there'll be political instability. one mayor being removed after another mayor, it will erode public trust in the
No,
government.
and
And
here's the thing.
citizens will not have confidence in,
Yeah, not
in,
only
in the
that, forget about
governance.
confidence. People are suffering. Flooding in Tshwane, um, problems with crime. These these when
Failure
you
of
see this
public
disunity,
services.
it's services. These are human beings who are suffering. Crime is on the rise, rape is on the rise, and it's because none of South Africa's resources, or not none of them, very little of its resources are spent on infrastructure, education, and things like that, especially in the small towns and villages. If you go to the big city, like if you go to Tshwane, if you go to the urban area parts of it, looks great. You go to Johannesburg, if you go to Sandton, if you go to Randburg, it looks great. But there are a lot of smaller areas where there's no representation, where there's no policing or anything, where you can just go and shoot people or kill.